On today's episode of Locked On Angels, Mike Trout has a torn meniscus, and we've got the details on if and when he can return, who replaces him, who's going to play for him, and we're also going to talk about how Carlos Estevez can't ever pick up his teammates when they desperately need a win. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, Mike, on today's show, we're recapping the game against the Phillies from last night. The Angels had a chance to take the series against a very tough Phillies team. Unfortunately, well, we'll get into the details of why that didn't happen. We're going to be talking about who's replacing Mike Trout with his team. But first, the bad news is that Mike Trout has a torn meniscus.
Yeah, Angels general manager Perry Minasian announced that Trout has a torn meniscus in his left knee and will be having knee surgery. It's not expected to be season ending, but there is no timetable on when he will be back. And Trouty, very emotional when he was speaking to the media about it, fighting back tears. He said he felt something in the third inning in Monday's game, didn't think much of it, played the rest of the game, scored from second on a wild pitch, had a stolen base. He said he felt good, but then when he sat down and then stood back up after a break in the inning, he felt some soreness and thought maybe it might just be that he's playing hard. Then after the game, felt some soreness, and then he let the staff know. He shared that he had trouble sleeping the night before and that it was not comfortable. So he woke up in the morning, he talked to the staff, and he said, hey, let's get this checked out just so he could clear his mind. He said He was really, really worried about that. Right. So they examined him yesterday morning and they got the results, and it was not the results that he was hoping for. And of course, Ron Washington and Perry Minasian both spoke about the injury. Wash said, we're going to miss Mike. I think we know what he means to this organization. But the thing about baseball is when there's a game on the schedule, you have to play. Some guys are going to get the opportunity that they've been craving. Now we're going to see what they can do. Of course, Perry Minasian said this team is not built on one player. It's built on multiple players. It's a team game. Guys have to step up. And that's where having a veteran manager and a veteran coaching staff really comes in handy. Minasian also mentioned that Mickey Moniak is going to get most of the starts and the playing time. He's going to have an opportunity to step up and do what he does best. I think that that's probably the only light in this darkness right now is that Moniak will get more at-bats. And when he has more at-bats, John, it seems like he is a bit more successful.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Mickey Moniak just doing what he did well last year, and that's good pitch selection. He didn't show that last night, Mike. He was getting fooled big time with, off speed, down and in on his hands, and he just kept swinging and reaching for that stuff. So
yeah, especially in the ninth inning.
Yeah, he's got to figure that stuff out if he's going to be a major player on this team. Logan O'Hoppe spoke as well, and he said that people don't see the work that Mike puts in behind the scenes and how good of a teammate he is and how he leads the room. He said that he's become a big brother to O'Hoppe and that the injury makes him sick. I think it made all of us sick. And on that note, Mike, just as a fan, what's your reaction to this news when you saw it come out yesterday?
I was heartbroken. I was shocked. I had multiple people text me. I was working and I didn't see the alert on social media. And it made me sick to my stomach because I know that this guy is working really, really hard. And what I just don't like, and I know I'm a Mike Trout fan, but what I just don't like is that there has been the narrative of like, oh, he's made of glass, or, oh, he's this or he's that, or, it was bound to happen. Right. And that's easy to say if you're a fan of other teams and you're not a fan of the Angels, as fans of the Angels, we know that this guy isn't Anthony Rendon. He's not taking time off. He's not doing what Rendon does, right? But here's what really just frustrates me about this injury and the Rendon injury is that it just will now give talking points to Angels higher ups, including Artie Moreno, to say, well, Rendon wasn't healthy and Trout wasn't healthy, and that's why we didn't do well this year.
That's why we don't sign anybody. Yeah.
And that's the other piece of the narrative too, is this is why we don't sign anybody. And that's just so frustrating because it's just blatantly not true.
Yeah.
And the term, what is it? Gaslighting. That's what it feels like, right? By the Angels organization when they talk about this team and the way that they're going about their business. And this is what's really frustrating outside of the personal feelings I have for Trout, outside of, I love watching him play, outside of the fact that he was beginning to really crush the ball and he was obviously leading the league in home runs. It's just frustrating because it feeds the Angels machine of, well, this is why. This is see, and that's what I just get really frustrated with on this news and what this news does and how it impacts the Angels organization. What about you?
To me, it's just like another example of the Angels being cursed whenever anything good is happening for us. You see Mike Trout probably vying for his 4th MVP in 2024. And that's kind of what you were expecting coming into the season is like, oh man, Mike Trout, he's going to have such a good season if he could just stay healthy. And that's been the caveat. If he can just be healthy. I mean, he's entering that Ken Griffey Jr. territory, Mike, where it's just availability is the best kind of availability. And that Mike Trout just hasn't had it. And I feel like we're missing from 21, 22, 23, and now 24, like we're missing some really good years of Mike Trout. And I just don't know what the solution is. And we'll get into a little bit later about like, what do they do here? Because, he was DHing and he was playing center field and maybe there's a move to be made there. But the fact is like, you can't bubble wrap this guy. And it doesn't matter how much you protect him, how much time you give time off to him. It just doesn't seem to make a difference in terms of getting injured. And the sad part is he loves playing center field. And the sad part is he loves stealing bases. And he was doing that more this year than he has in the last few years. And like you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about him just like letting him take the training wheels off of Mike Trout and just letting Trout be Trout. Kind of like what they did with Ohtani. It was like, hey, just stop babying Ohtani. Let Ohtani decide for himself what he can do. And that's what took him to the heights that he got to with the 2 MVPs as an Angel. And I know it ended with an injury, but those injuries are inevitable. But the same thing with Mike Trout is, man, if you could just take the training wheels off Trout, like he's gonna bloom, he's gonna blossom. And it's just so frustrating that now this is the conversation that we have to be having with the fact that he's got this torn meniscus. It's going to keep him out of the game for a while. And it's just really frustrating as a fan.
Yeah, there were several roster moves in light of this. So Amir Garrett got into the game last night. He's a left-handed relief pitcher, kind of a hothead, right? Isn't really kind of a relief arm that you can rely upon, but he fits perfectly into this Angels bullpen.
He was a really good relief arm for years, but he just hasn't been good recently. And so he was just brought in as some bullpen depth. And here we are needing that bullpen depth. Yeah,
Trout goes on the 10-day IL. Michael Stefanik and Chase Silseth were transferred to the 60-day IL. For Silseth, that wasn't because he's going to have surgery or anything like that. He was just starting his throwing program again. And so this gives him time to be able to stretch out again and get ready to come back. Unfortunately, we won't see him for at least now 2 months. Davis Daniel was optioned back to AAA. So the big question,
what the heck?
I know. Yeah. The dude didn't even get to pitch. So the big question, Johnny, is how do the Angels fill this roster spot? Do they go get a major league player? Well, they did. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, they went and got Kevin Pillar. They signed him to a league minimum deal. He was just released from the White Sox on Sunday, Mike. He was already suited up and ready to play on Tuesday, which I was shocked because about an hour before the game is when they announced that he was an Angel.
Right.
Because we were all going, well, who are they going to bring up? Jake Marisnick or maybe one of the other guys like Jason Martin or something like that. Bryce Teodosio's having a great year in AAA. So a lot of people were wondering if he would get the call up. But here's the thing about Kevin Pillar. He's a veteran outfielder. He bats right-handed.
Yep.
He's got really good numbers this year against lefties and also through his career this year versus lefties. He's had 16 plate appearances against lefties. He bat .250, had a .438 on base percentage .417 slugging, and an .854 OPS. And then throughout his career, Mike, he's got a .277 average, a .310 on base, a .460 slugging, and a .770 OPS. So really, I think you got to see him in there against lefties only. And we can't be doing this Aaron Hicks experiment again where he gets time over Mickey Moniak and whatnot. If there's a tough lefty on the mound, Mickey Moniak can't be in that lineup, then that's the only time these guys should be going to Kevin Pillar. I do not want to see a repeat of this Aaron Hicks nonsense that we saw for the first few weeks.
Right. Big question is, how do the Angels move forward in light of this injury and Rendon's injury? Wash has really put a lot of emphasis on the guys getting opportunities to step up. Of course, that's going to be the narrative, and let's see what the guys can do. He also mentioned that they still have games to play every single day, so the next game is coming, right? And Gooby mentioned on the broadcast, too, that the Angels have to come into each game knowing that they have a chance to win the series. And so it's really going to be a mindset thing. Honestly, John, the talent, obviously there's a gap between them and some of the really good teams. And so it's going to be a mindset thing. And these guys, if they can get something unlocked in them, maybe their offense can start going, those types of things. I think that could be a benefit, but it really boils down to the pitching. And we're going to get to the game in the third segment of today's show. It's really the pitching, John, that has to step up because the offense was there last night and the pitching was not. And I know that it was just one person, but they're going to have to figure out how they don't give games away, especially games like they gave away last night, because those are just momentum killers. Those are vampire games. They suck all of the energy out of you because you worked so hard to come back, and then it just completely drains you and you don't have anything left. And these are young guys that are learning how to win, but right now they're still figuring out how to lose. And that's the hard part about this team. And it's not necessarily the young guys. It's been some of the veterans.
Yeah. It's been some of the veterans who've been kind of screwing it up here. And that's the problem, Mike, is it could have been a nice bow tie on a very crappy day where we got this news that Mike Trout is going to be out for a while. And the Angels could have taken this series against the Phillies, and they had every opportunity to do so. And even fighting back down 3-0 and taking the lead, and then seeing Carlos Estevez give it away like that was just so frustrating. So again, like you mentioned, we'll recap that in our third segment. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Phillies today at 1:07 Pacific time. It's Patrick Sandoval versus Zach Wheeler, who is the ace of the Phillies staff, somebody that was rumored to be talking to Billy Epler back in the day before we ended up signing Anthony Rendon. We could have had Wheeler on our team, but you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, will Trout be back this season? Well, we're going to tell you how each procedure that is available to Trout might affect his timeline for potential return and his future on the field. We'll get into all of that coming right up.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. We know that Mother's Day is coming up real fast, and DoorDash wants to help you love mama on Mother's Day, whether she has a sweet tooth or she's a tech enthusiast or a beauty connoisseur, or maybe she's an outdoorsy kind of gal. No matter what she's into, you can make her smile with fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout gear, and a whole lot more when you use DoorDash. Get your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next retail order using our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. So download the DoorDash app, create an account, use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB, use DoorDash to love on mom this Mother's Day. And Locked On Angels is also brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other people, including pros and sharks, it's just you against the numbers. You pick between 2 and 6 players and decide if they're going to produce more than or less than the projected stat. And if you get it right, you're going to watch the winnings roll in. So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond to your Prize Pick entries, whether it's strikeouts or RBIs. First inning runs, if it's the Angels, you know there's going to be some first inning runs. Or take your pick of more or less of any stat, and then if you get it right, it's going to be a good day for you. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Download the app right now, enter our promo code Locked On MLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's promo code Locked On MLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Join Prize Picks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. It's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team every day, the Angels are back at it against the Phillies today, 1:07 Pacific time at the Big A. It's the last game of this homestand before the Angels head out on a road trip. They'll be in Cleveland starting Friday. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Big question is, will Trout be back this season? They don't expect this injury to be a season-ending injury, but how long will it take? Well, Jesse Morse, a sports and family medicine physician, posted about Trout's torn meniscus on Twitter, and he provided some really detailed explanation and specifics, which was really helpful. He's at Dr. Jesse Morse. So what we've learned from him is that Trout has dealt with a whole lot of wrist, back, and calf injuries over the years, but there's no reported history of knee issues. When the news came out today that this injury was to his meniscus, it's going to require some sort of surgery. But again, it's not going to be season ending. The meniscus is a really important piece of cartilage in the knee. I should know because my wife has bad knees. My kids have bad knees. They've had knee issues. And so these are words that we throw around pretty often at the house, but it protects the ACL, which is the function of the knee, including our dad actually had knee replacement surgery too. So we know all about knees.
You got a whole new knee,
right?
Yeah. There's a meniscus, Mike, on both the inner medial and the outer lateral parts of the knee. Each of these are shaped similar to the letter C. Traditionally, the meniscus has very poor blood supply and does not heal very well on its own. Injuries to the mid-body or posterior back part of the knee have a tendency to cause even more issues.
Yeah, there's two types of surgery when it comes to knee issues and that you're performing on the meniscus. The first is a trimming of the meniscus, and it often is it tends to be a quick fix and can end up being counterproductive in the long run, which with Trout, it's dangerous because you don't want him to go back on the IL, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can allow more damage to the cartilage, often leading to some osteoarthritis. The benefit of the surgery is that it removes the meniscus that is causing the pain and the swelling and allows the person to return to normal function relatively quickly.
Yeah, so Dr. Jesse Morse continued, and he said, this is likely what Trout will have in light of the fact that they said it would not end his season. The other type of procedure is a much larger one, and this is a repair of the meniscus. These are often completed when the patient is young, and there's a significant tear of the meniscus when removing or trimming would not be effective. Dr. Jesse Morse said, I would not be surprised if Trout is evaluated by Dr. Neil Atrache, who is one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the country and is based in Los Angeles.
So there's two possible possibilities here with Trout. One is that some players will return from the trimming of a meniscus in about 2 to 3 weeks, but that's really aggressive and usually not recommended. And John, remember last year when he broke his hamate bone, he came back and he was just not comfortable.
No, it wasn't ready.
Then he was done, right? And the Angels were out of it, so it made sense. But I think that they want to make sure that he's ready. I think maybe a more realistic timeline for Trouty is anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So that's all of May, and I would expect maybe most of June. I don't think we'll see him until maybe the end of June, possibly July. Post-surgery, Trout's rehabilitation will be really important and may be complemented by supplemental injections like PRP, stem cells, those types of things to help improve his rehab and recovery.
Now, the second option from Dr. Jesse Morse is if the surgeon deems that the piece of meniscus that is torn is larger than expected once they open up his knee, there's a chance the decision is to repair the meniscus instead, which would end his season. I think a realistic scenario is that Trout returns between mid-June and the All-Star break, assuming he doesn't have any setbacks. So, Mike, the question here is, it sounds like the Angels might be going with that short-term solution that's a little bit riskier in terms of problems down the line. Is this the right move? What do you say?
That's hard. I mean, how do you define right for the Angels? Like, what are they trying to do? They don't know what they're trying to do. And so if they're trying to compete, you want Mike Trout on the field. You obviously don't want him off the field because he's a draw for tickets and he's a draw for attention, all of those things. And we want to see him play. But this team is kind of just there. Yeah. And so what do you do with Trout? I think you got to let Trout dictate that, right? Because the Angels aren't necessarily doing well in the standings, aren't necessarily doing well this season. And so what's right? I say you let Mike Trout make those decisions. Trout will want to come back as soon as he possibly can. You want him to be back when he's fully functional and fully healthy. And if the surgery is the 4 to 6 week surgery, then I think you just listen to Trout and let him dictate that, because at this point, the Angels organization really doesn't know who they are or what they're trying to achieve, right?
I wonder if they do this short-term solution like surgery right now, and then maybe he gets something a little bit more lasting over the off season. I don't know. I mean, it may be something a little bit more permanent. Maybe there's like a temporary fix, that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with Mike Trout.
Yeah, the big question here, Johnny, is do we finally have the hard conversation of moving Mike Trout out of center field? What do you think?
Well, yes, this could have happened while he was running the bases. Something that he's going to have to run the bases no matter where he plays, Mike.
Could have happened going up and down the stairs of the dugout, right?
Right, exactly. Does that cause reduced wear and tear on him if they move him, if he's not manning center field? I mean, yes. But again, like you said, it could have been going up and down the stairs. It could have been running the bases. Now, here's my thing. And just because Bryce Harper and the Phillies are in town, does Trout move to first base? What do you say?
Wow, man, that's interesting move, right? And I know that Trout will take it very, very seriously. He's not going to have to do too much. But I mean, it's going to be a situation like with Bryce Harper that, is he going to be able to adjust and move there? If there's anybody on the Angels that can, it is certainly Mike Trout, because he will make that work. There's also the question of the DH, right? Like, is that going to be something where Trout needs to utilize that a whole lot more? Because he's only DH'd, I think, twice so far this season. Yeah,
it seems like I feel like he's gotten a DH spot maybe once a week, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like it's been at least 3.
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look, because you're right. I don't think it's very much. But I mean, honestly, like, did that do enough to help either? I don't know. I mean, like we've been talking about.
He's still got to be on his legs. He's still got to be up and around. He's still got to run the bags. He's still got to bat. Like, all of those things are just things that are a reality as a baseball player, as a sports athlete. And so it's not like you can just have him sit around and not do anything. And, injury is inevitable wherever you go. And so that this is a hard conversation, but I do think that the Angels need to have the conversation and figure out where they can plant Trout, where they can put Trout. So it's the wear and tear. Right? It's the wear and tear conversation. Where is it less likely for him to get hurt again? Yeah. Where does it not wear him down the most? And so DH, first base might be the best options.
It's just so frustrating. Like I mentioned in the first segment, I mean, it doesn't seem to matter what you do with any of these guys. Like even Anthony Rendon, I saw him speak to the media from 2 days ago. And he's like, I'm doing everything I should be doing to like prepare my body for the game, and stuff just keeps happening. And that's the problem here, is just these guys are in their 30s and they're getting older, and this is the inevitability of life. I mean, like I have a friend named Josh who is in his 30s, and he jokes about his knees all the time. He's like, I got no more knees left and I'm only 34, and it's just like the inevitability of life. And so these guys are just finding out very quickly that like they're not invincible. So they really need to come to a solution here with Mike Trout, because I don't know what it is. And they're going to have to figure it out together. But I think something's got to give especially after an injury like this.
Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. This is So much fun to play. You got to download it on your phone. You're going to join over 150 million people who have downloaded this game so far. And it's a great twist on Monopoly. You're not playing on the board, you're playing on your phone. And they've got crazy locations. You can build up amazing cities, and you can bring in some big money. Best part, you can play against family, play against friends, and play it on the go. You can take it with you. It has all of the great things, like you can charge rent for iconic properties. It's got classic Monopoly moments, but there's added twists, like you can make a heist with your friends and vault the riches of those around you and take them for yourself. There's leaderboards to see who's better at this game, and you can maybe talk some smack to one another. That's a whole lot of fun. And there's tournaments that you can be a part of to win huge rewards. So download Monopoly Go today. Play this game with your friends. Play this game with your family. Take it with you wherever you go. Sneak it while you're at work. Monopoly Go is a whole lot of fun. It's at the Apple Store and the Google Play Store.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, Mike, it could have been a really fun night had the Angels taken this series from the Phillies, and it could have put a nice bow on a day that was pretty big of a downer with the news about Mike Trout. Unfortunately, that's not the way things shook out in this game against the Phillies in game 2. The Angels lost 7-5, and it didn't seem like it was going to go that way until the later innings. But let's talk about a few key moments from this game. The first I want to talk about was Tyler Anderson. Now, he did give up a hit and a walk in the first 2 innings. Now, he only did end up surrendering 2 walks, and he really locked it down. But in that second inning, he gave up a 2-out, 3-run home run to Kyle Schwarber. So that put the Angels down 3-0 in that second inning. In the third inning, he had a fly out to Harper, a pop out from Alec Boehm, and a strikeout to Real Muto. Fourth inning, he gave up 1 hit, but he got all 3 outs without much trouble. Struck out the side in the 5th, and that was Schwarber, Turner, and Harper. Top of the 6th, he had a ground out to Alec Boehm, a single to Real Muto, and then got Marsh to hit into a double play. And Brandon Drury got that play started. Looked really good at second base there. So Tyler Anderson's night was not a terrible night, all things considered, especially the way that it started, and especially the fact that at one point he was in line for the win, and he wanted to come back out, Mike. He wanted to come back out and pitch. They ended up going with Luis Garcia. Kind of makes you wonder if Tyler Anderson did go back out there for another inning, how the 8th and the 9th would have gone. So, we can sit here and Monday morning quarterback all we want, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I think Tyler Anderson had a really solid outing against a really tough Phillies team.
Yeah, Angels had a chance to score immediately in the bottom of the second inning, John. Drury was hit by a pitch. Rengifo single. Drury goes to third. Rengifo still second. Then O'Hoppe strikes out. Cole Tucker strikes out looking, and then Moniak grounds out. It was a missed opportunity. The Angels cannot miss those opportunities, and they seem to just be their own worst enemy again in games like this, right?
Second and third with no outs, Mike.
I know.
And they didn't get 1 run from that.
Right. They're not even moving the ball over. They struck out. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They're not making contact and rolling out over to first base. That's the main issue here is you got to get at least 1 run in those situations, right?
Exactly. Zach Neto in the bottom of the third had an opposite field home run that led off the inning, and that made it 3-1. So they kind of cut back into it. Bottom of the 5th, Mike, Cole Tucker led off with a single. Moniak struck out. Cole Tucker stole second while Neto struck out, and then Shawnuel grounded out. And so that was another situation, runners in scoring position, where the Angels came up short in the bottom of the 5th. So I know the final score was 7-5 and that the Angels did have the lead, but there were so many more opportunities where these guys should have scored.
Yeah. Bottom of the 6th is where things turned around for the Halos. They got a couple of runners on, and then Drury grounds what should have been into a double play, but Trey Turner boots it at short, and Rengifo comes up and hits a 3-run home run. And so the momentum is on the Angels side. And not only did they get that, then they also get another run because Tucker comes up, hits a double. It was his 3rd hit as an Angel. And then Moniak singles him in. And this was a momentum changing moment in this game. Like, this could have been great because then Luis Garcia comes in, gets 1, 2, 3, and we're moving into the 8th inning. And you've got Matt Moore and possibly Carlos Estevez. Matt Moore comes in, he gets a fly out, gives up a single, gets a strikeout to Harper, but then an RBI single to Boehm. So then it's a 1-run game at that point. So Wash decides to bring in Carlos Estevez with 2 outs in the 8th inning. 4-out save, right? Here's the problem. His ERA is over 10.5 in situations like this.
Is that all? Just 10.5?
So he does get the out in the 8th inning, but then the 9th inning happened, John, and Estevez starts with a strikeout to Marsh, got him looking, which was a good moment. But then Estevez did what we have come to expect, and he gave up a home run to Castellanos, tied the game. Then Bryson Stott gets a double, and then Enright visits, and then Rojas, who has no home runs.
Yeah.
And he comes in and hits a 2-run home run, makes it 7-5. Then Wash finally takes him out, and Amir Garrett comes in. But John, these are moments that are so frustrating as a fan because Estevez has to pick up his team here. We are counting on you as a veteran closer to pick up the team. And they came back and they lost their superstar. And all you can give us is 1 out in the 8th.
Yeah.
And then you struggle in the 9th inning. And I'm tired of this narrative of, well, he pitched the day before and he threw 26. Come on. You're a major league freaking baseball pitcher. And you can't come out and pitch the next day. And I get that it's about velocity. Well, then figure that out. You're a major league freaking pitcher. Figure that out. But you're serving up home runs to 2 guys who had a combined, I think, 1 home run this whole season. And they hit 2. You get 2 from both of those guys in this inning. It's just unacceptable, especially after the announcement that was made yesterday about Trout.
Did anybody check the news when Castellanos hit the home run? Like, did anything bad in the world happen?
Right.
Right around that time.
Well, we got news of Mike Trout, and there's a drive, right? Like,
yes. Castellanos, left field. Right, there it is.
Yeah.
Mike, I hear what you're saying about being able to come out back-to-back days and do this, but here's where sometimes I think the old school mentality gets in the way of like what's right in front of you. The fact that Carlos Estevez has a 10.5 ERA on games where has no days rest between the 2 of them, and he's going for a 4-out save here. Somebody's got to have a chart. Some nerd somewhere somehow has to have a chart that says, gee, I don't know, Wash, this might be a bad move because considering, like, let's look at the track record here of Carlos Estevez. I don't know if he's the best guy to go to in this situation. And I totally understand. Carlos Estevez should be able to do those things. Yeah. He should be able to go back-to-back days. But the fact is that he hasn't. And I think that there needs to be all kinds of red flags from who's the assistant, the bench coach here?
Ray Montgomery.
Ray Montgomery. Mr. Ray Montgomery, who's supposed to be Perry's guy in the dugout. Somebody's got to say something. Yeah. Somebody's got to say something because that's not a decision that you can make in this sort of game where the game is on the line. And I know that they didn't have a lot of options in this bullpen, but at the end of the day, I think it's just a bad move to go with a guy who has a track record like that.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are going to try to get this series against the Phillies today at 1:07 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and get into the comments because that's the best way to reach Mike and I. Hey, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show, Mike?
We're going to recap today's game, and we're going to talk about how Patrick Sandoval did, and we're going to pay close attention to how he's pitching because it seems like he's been opening up as he's throwing to the plate. So we're going to watch his mechanics. Specifically today, we're going to talk about how he did and how the Angels did, and hopefully they can get a series win. We'll talk about it tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us again. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
I was sick to my stomach when I saw that. I thought it was April Fool's when I saw Mike Trout news.
The Trout news, yeah. Oh. I hear you.
Oh, it made me sick.